Webinar right now. I'm going to click the record button. So we are recording this webinar. Everybody will get a copy of this after we are done. My name is Deanna Haas. I am our SVP of Growth for Sold.com. Nice to see a lot of you guys. Hopefully you guys are every month starting to join these different webinars. I'm really happy that we take our lead generation a step further by really trying to invest in our agent network and provide more than just, hey, here's a lead, have at it. Because we're a success-based company, we have a little bit more vested interest in, we want you to actually succeed in working our leads, right? We want you to actually be successful, find the tips, find the tools, find the right motivation in some cases, which is why we love hosting these webinars with Tom and his coaches. And so this month we have Jarrod Davis. We are happy to have Jarrod back. He actually hosted a webinar with us last year, and because he had such good feedback, and everything just correlated so well with what Sold.com does, we invited Jarrod back. So we're super excited to have you, Jarrod. A quick little bio on Jarrod. So Jarrod has been a coach for 12 years. So he knows what he's talking about. He had a real estate business that he sold in 2019 that did, you said, $1 billion in production. In 2014.
We did it 2 years in a row, 2014 and 2015. We did, yeah.
Yeah, so you know what you're talking about, and that's why you're here. That's why Tom has you here. So grab your notepads. Like I said, this is going to be recorded. This is really great information. So without further ado, Jarrod, I hand the microphone over to you. I'll bring your slides up. And
Perfect.
For everybody, we have chat. So this is a live webinar. If you guys have questions, we're going to do our best to facilitate and ask those questions or answer those questions.
Yeah, thanks, Deanna. You know, listen, one thing that I love about Sold.com is the way that you invest back into the agents in training. You know, I'm a big believer, you know, we give it. If we're going to, you know, invest in agent things, we want to invest back into agents. So I love the fact you guys are constantly trying to help agents get better. You're constantly focused on that. So I'm excited to be back again. And thanks for having me back. And again, I love it that that's what you guys are focused on. So let's jump into this, because I know we only have limited time, and I really want to kind of talk about this. And it's one of the most important topics that we need to make sure that we are covering right now is ultimately taking more listings, right? So the more listings, the more inventory, the more stuff that you have in order for you to put out on the shelf, or in order for you to market, in order for you to do all that. Is listings. Any top real estate agent, whether they're a single agent, whether they're a team, you know, is really determined by the number of listings they have and the inventory. So I want to make sure that today we're totally focused on you going out and not just getting more listings, but dominating your market when it comes to taking listings, right? Because markets always shift. And so buyers, sellers, like all of that always change. And right now we have a couple of big challenges, across the board, mostly in North America, whether it's Canada, whether it's the US, and that is overpricing. So I'm going to cover a little bit about that. And so, you know, there were times in our market that you could hardly overprice, right? Like you'd put a listing up and you'd get like 17 offers and it would sell for way higher than what you had, what we had put it up for, and it was good. But in today's market, when days on market are a lot longer, when buyers are more cautious, when we live in a real estate world that is a little bit uncertain, we need to make sure that we're educating the seller on what it is it's going to take to get their home sold, because we're no longer in that market where we just put a listing on and we're good to go. So let's kind of jump in, and then I'll dive into that a little bit, because even last year when I did a talk on listings, it was a different market a little bit back then, right? So things are going to have changed a little bit. So I'm going to adjust what I say so that you're looking at it from the market perspective. So, all right, a little bit about me. I've been, like Deanna said, 30 years. I've been in real estate. We did $1 billion in sales. We sold over 27 homes in a year, and over 50% of those were listings. So we've had plenty of listing experience and how to get listings on the market, get them sold, and take them, right? So we want you ultimately to convert more seller appointments into listings. Now, here's the truth. I want you to convert more calls into seller appointments, right? We are in a business of conversion. And so conversion is key, right? So we look at how we focus on taking more listings, what we do to get more listings, and diversify what we do. Like Tom loves to say, we have a choice of casting one single line into the water to fish, or we can cast a net. And right now, I want you casting a net. Now, I say that with a grain of salt, because I don't want you, going after everything, because it's truly what you master. So at least if you're a single agent, maybe 4 lead sources chasing listings. If you're a team, you probably want a lot more than that. But ultimately, attacking different opportunities for leads, right? And so again, when you look at there's a lot of things that we can go out and do, sweat equity, where we can chase listings, and then there's companies that help us out, like Sold.com. That we can invest in companies like Sold.com. They invest in you, and ultimately they're bringing leads. And so there's many different ways to do it. And I know Deanna, wants me to share all of the ways, and getting to understand, where Sold.com fits in that model, and where's your biggest opportunity, with working with a company like Sold.com. So let's kind of jump in here. All right, so preparation, right? So let's talk about preparation, because you'd be surprised at how many agents go on listing appointments and not be prepared. And the truth is, if you're not prepared, expect to lose. If you're not prepared, expect to lose. It's no different than, with our kids or ourselves in school. If we don't prepare them for a test, they are going to fail. And so for you, if you're not prepared for your listings, then you're also going to lose. You're also going to fail. And so get super, super clear that preparation is key, right? Because it is your opportunity ultimately to showcase your expertise. There's not one seller out there that says, listen, I don't really want to hire an expert. I want to hire an amateur. So I don't want you to show up like you know what you're talking about, right? Every single seller wants you to be an expert. And so if you don't show up as an expert, then that's how you're seen, right? Here's the other thing. Selling someone's house is not about you. It's about them. And so you need to make sure that in order for your preparation, that you're going there and you're delivering towards that seller's needs and goals. Like, what is their goals? What is their needs? What do they, want to get out of this experience? We want to make sure that we're always providing accurate information on property in the community. Like, I dominated an area that was my farm. And when I walked into a listing presentation, there wasn't a question that I knew what I was talking about. I would go in and I'd be able to go 123 ABC Street, that's sold for this, and this is what it was, blah, blah. Like, I did my research, so they knew that I was a community expert. I mean, I don't know if you, but there was tons of times that I was, tons of times that I had the opportunity to go, but we want to hire the local expert, right? Oh, or this person lists all the homes in this neighborhood, so we want to go with them. But here's the truth. You could show up as that local expert, even if you didn't dominate that farm or dominate that area. And so it ultimately, you want to show up like that, so they go, holy cow, this guy knows this area, right? The next one is so important, that we want to determine the right price for the home. And the reason I say that right now is there's so many of us that we have the mindset of, oh yeah, the home is priced right. Now, here's the truth. If you go in and you say to a seller, hey, Mr. Seller, I think, and we're going to talk about kind of working down a price, but you come to an agreement that maybe $590 is the price of the home. And the seller goes to you, well, listen, I was really hoping to get $600. I was really hoping to get, can we list it at $599? Now, I would never tell you not to take that listing, but what I am going to tell you is when you list it at $599, just be super clear, you're overpricing that property. You're overpricing that property. And so you need to set yourself up with sellers in that case, because listen, let's be honest, a few years ago when we priced it, if we had that same experience, we'd get probably still 10 offers at over 600, right? Like, let's be real. That is not today. So we can't treat that part of our presentation like we did back then. We just can't do it. We need to get them to understand the importance of pricing it right and what the options are in pricing it right. Right. And that, again, that rolls right into understanding the market conditions. Our job is to share with the sellers that, what are the market conditions? Where are they selling in the market? What happens and what to expect from the market? as we list their property. Because listen, if a seller lists their property today, depending on the market, and they're like, man, we expect it to sell in the first 30 days. If you're not pricing it right, you're going to set them up for unrealistic expectations. And if you set people up for unrealistic expectations, or better yet, if you set them up for unmet expectations, then they don't take that out on the market. They take that out on you, which is why understanding the conditions and understanding pricing is so important right now in this, in this market, because we want them to trust us. Like, that is why people hire us, is because they trust us. They think we're credible. They think that we know what we're talking about and we're going to win. I always say an objection isn't an objection if you can handle it before it becomes an objection. And so the truth is, we want to make sure that we understand their potential concerns and challenges early on in the process. And so I'm going to talk about how we get into that and how we prepare for those, like, upfront in advance before we show up, so that we don't have anybody that gives us an objection. Like, let's be honest, you've done your job in explaining how you're going to sell their home, what their market is, when they just go, I am ready to list, and they don't have any questions, any concerns. And that sometimes starts with being upfront with the things that is going to concern them as a seller, or the challenges, and we handle those early. Your job right now in a listing is to make sure that they are super clear that you're laying that foundation for a successful relationship, right? That the presentation, the preparation, everything is about you laying the foundation. So when you're out there, you are going to win, because that is our goal, is ultimately to win. So let's kind of jump in, and I want to start here. Because in order for us to win on listings, we got to go out on appointments. Like I always say to people, they go, man, we need listing appointment. We need listing presentation training. I said, well, how many listing appointments have you set this week? Well, I haven't set any. Well, how about this? Let's start with getting listing appointments. And there's so many opportunities, right? And so let's start at the very top and understand each one of these that you choose. This is just a whole list of the different ones that are there. This is just a whole list. The truth is when it comes to going after it, what I want to make sure that you guys get is this: is every single one on that list, every single one that we're talking about on that list needs to have a full lead source plan. Right? A full lead source plan, which means that it includes not just our initial contact for appointment setting, but our long-term follow-up, our nurture, what it looks like. And so we should have a plan for each of these, because if you go out and do one thing, and I'll use the very first one on that list was sphere of influence. And a lot of people say, oh yeah, most of my business comes from my sphere of influence. It's the most important. And then I ask them, well, have you called them 4 times a year? Now, listen, here's the truth. I want you to look in the mirror right now, and can you say to me, yes, I called them 4 times this year? Right? If you called them 4 times this year, just press on the heart button so I can see how many of you have actually called them 4 times. And I'm going to assume if no hearts happen, then no one did it. Right? And so the truth is, you're not talking to them enough. And so it's not just about the phone calls. It's not, okay, fair enough. Some of them are doing it. That's great. Love it, love it, love it. If you're not doing it enough, then you're not going to win. Right? Same thing with emails, right? They go, oh yeah, but I email my database. I email my sphere of influence once a month. That's not enough, right? That's not enough. And so all of these lead source plans for listings, you need to have a plan of action for them. So I'm going to jump back into that real quick. Here's the list. Sphere of influence, past clients, right? Number 1 lead source. I'm going to give you a quick script that you should be calling right now, because in our spring market, and I don't care where you are, even in Florida, it may not be your hottest market, but there is a spring version of a market in most marketplaces, right? I'd be picking up that phone right now and going, hey, Johnny, listen, I'm super excited. The spring market is coming around the corner and we're seeing more activity in the real estate market. The reason, Johnny, for my call today is we are looking for great inventory or great houses to put on the market because we see an uptick in buyers. I love working with you. And most of my business comes from referrals from people like you. And the reason for my call is I just want to know is, do you have anybody right now that I can help? It's a super simple script, right? It's a super simple script. And I'd be on the phone this quarter prepping myself for the spring market. Why? Because spring only happens one time a year. And it's an easy conversation because everybody loves spring. I don't even, listen, I have a place in Florida. I have a place in Canada. Spring in Canada means it's very different things than spring in Florida. But still, spring in Florida, even though it's warm and nice all year round, it is still a different feeling. And so I want to make sure that we have that opportunity. Expireds for sale by owners. Every market has that opportunity. And if you tell yourself, oh, everybody does that, it is not true. Now, will a lot of expireds get phone calls from agents? Sure. But are you afraid of competition, or are you willing to get into competition? Are you willing to jump into competition? Are you willing to kill it and be better than other agents? Because if you're on this call listening to this, you're well ahead of the majority of agents out there about mastering their business, right? So don't be afraid of that. Set that up. And again, a whole system around expireds. It could be making the phone call, sending a text message, sending an email. If you don't have it, maybe sending a letter. Could be door knocking expireds. Like, don't just stop at the only option I have is to pick up the phone. Man, the phone is where it starts, right? The phone is where it starts. Non-owner occupieds, open houses, right? So like on our team, in our open houses, we had, we used to, part of our strategy in open houses was that our agents had to show up at least an hour before or the day before. We didn't care. They door knocked at least. We did 5 across the street, 10 down, across the street, 5 over, and we invited them to open houses. I have some teams right now that I coach that we're all over them literally when they get a listing, circle dialing or door knocking the community, basically with the simple script. Hey, listen, we've listed a home just down the street at 123 ABC Street. Here's a couple of things that we know happen. Number one is we want to give the local area the first opportunity if they have any friends and family that would like to move into the opportunity or move into the house, have someone close by. Here's the second thing is that we're only going to have one buyer for that house, but we're going to have a lot of interested people. And so if you know anybody in the community right now that is interested in selling, I would love to keep them on our list as a backup, right? Again, those are easy conversations to have for open houses, for new listings, right? Circle dialing, door knocking. Then we have social media. I believe, and again, I know Tom, I think Tom's done a couple of classes on this, that you should be getting 2 listings for every listing you take. And so I'm going to ask you is, how are you using social media as a tool for you to get listings from your listings? Right? Get listings from your listings. So I want you to think about, how we're using social media as a tool to make sure we're driving leads to us of people who are listing. And then obviously there are great companies like sold.com, right? That'll give you seller leads. And I think Deanna at the end is going to share a little bit about kind of how they help with seller lead generation. And again, it's not about doing 1 or 2 of those. It's picking the 3 or 4, right? Sure, you like sold.com, you do pay them, for that lead at the end of the day, but you're not doing a ton of work to get it other than cash equity, right? You're spending money to do it. And then there's others of these that you're putting sweat equity in. And you need to have a mix of both. Right? You need to have a mix of both because you want to like have a huge amount of leads so that we fill our pipeline for leads. All right. Holy cow, I can talk forever, and I want to get into kind of the meats and potatoes of this session here. All right, let's jump into this. What does the appointment mean? Right? What is the appointment? What are the structure of this? And guys, if you're not writing this stuff down, write it down because you're not going to remember it. And at least if you write it down, you can go back to it and reference it. And it's not because I don't think that you guys know how to do listing appointments. It's just I want you to walk away from this call with something going, I'm going to add that. Oh, that's not a bad idea. right? It's not that you guys aren't doing it. It's just that what could you find in what I'm talking about today that is a little bit different? Number one, pre-listing questionnaire in advance, which means the day before the call. And so a lot of us just show up, and there's a lot of kind of, you understand sales is psychological, right? Sales is psychological. And so there's a lot of things in this pre-listing questionnaire that benefit you other than the information, right? When we talked about in the very beginning of preparation, this pre-listing questionnaire allows you to go there prepared, right? Allows you to get information upfront in advance. But here's the second piece of that pre-listing questionnaire, and we'll go over some of that. I think it's going to be in our next slides. But the pre-listing questionnaire, here's the psychological piece behind it. If you could do it over a Zoom call, I highly recommend it. If not, you can do it over a phone call. But this is why the Zoom call is so important, is when you do a Zoom call, and like whether we're in person right now, and I'm all the way in Canada right now doing this call, and some of you are in thousands of miles away, but you're going to leave this call saying, I did a training with Jarrod Davis. Like, that's how you're going to feel. Matter of fact, your brain don't know any different than that you couldn't reach out and touch me right now, right? And if we met, if I got on a plane and I went down and met you, you would feel like you already know me a little bit. And so that is the same concept. When you look at the reason people hire you is because they know, like, and trust you. If we can make the pre-listing questionnaire your first appointment, it means your listing appointment becomes the second appointment. And if people hire us because they know, like, and trust us, and this becomes their second appointment, then there's a better chance that you're going to establish a stronger relationship than the agent that just shows up and they've never met him before, right? So think about that. Now, we used to also door knock our presentation, or door knock what we used to call our seller's guide. And so we would do that. And then we would actually go door knock. So then our goal was to get them face to face so we could hand it to them and go, hey, I just want to bring you this information before tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. Now, if you're putting that much information out, are you really also securing the appointment? Of course you are, right? You're securing the appointment. They see that you're putting in the work. They see that you're trying. But here's the truth. A lot of you prepare and nobody sees it. So they don't know that how much work you're spending on it up front in advance, right? The second piece of the appointment, when you get there, our goal is to start building rapport, right? Know, like, trust. That's why they hire us. Know, like, trust. And so when you're in that appointment, you want to spend some time building rapport. And I'm going to dive a little bit into that because a lot of people go building rapport. Oh, I got to talk about their family and their friends. And like we know the Ford model. Like, if you don't know the Ford model, you can look it up. Family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. And so I'm going to cover it a bit different with you because building rapport is also about building credibility. Once you build credibility, you build trust. Building rapport is also about knowledge. Once you show they know that it's building trust, right? So I'm going to approach it from a little bit of a different perspective. Not that family, occupations, recreations, and dreams is not a way to do it. It absolutely is. However, I want to make sure that you understand it's not having to go in and necessarily, put your arm around them and love them and blah, 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 right? It's about building trust, right? Third, uncover the seller's needs. Can't help them until we know what they want. So many of us just go in and spill and spit out, everything that we can do before we even know what they want. And so it's really important, no different than a buyer. Like, if you were sitting down doing a buyer consultation and, and they said, I want you to show me homes. And you're just like, great, I've got a whole list of homes. Come on. And they're like, hey, this is nothing about what we wanted. Man, we wanted like a 3-bedroom, in the town, and you're showing us condos. Right. And so if we don't uncover a buyer's needs, which we get, then we're wasting time with buyers for sure. Not that agents don't do that. Unfortunately, they do. But with the seller, it's the exact same thing. We can't help someone until we know what they want. And so we need to make sure we're doing that. Then we're getting into the listing presentation. I mean, we aren't even hitting the listing presentation until we're kind of well into a meeting with them. Now, it's not a long meeting, but we're well into a meeting with them before we start sharing what we're doing. Because our listing presentation then can be easily tailored around their needs rather than tailored around us. Rather than going, this is what we do, it's easier for it to go, you mentioned this is what we can do to help with that. You mentioned, that this was a challenge with the last agent. This is what we do to overcome that. And so you can tailor your listing presentation around them. And then pricing presentation, right? Now, some people go, well, that's how I present the CMA. And it is very true. That is what a pricing presentation is. But it's also your opportunity that if you wait till you get there, you've built enough trust that you can help the seller self-discover. Somebody who self-discovers anything will be more apt to believe it than if you tell them. And so we want them to self-discover. We want them to look at it and go, yeah, I definitely understand. Because listen, overpricing is the biggest problem. It's the biggest problem in markets like we're in today. It's the biggest problem in every single market that we're in. Sellers always want more for their house. Problem is, agents are often willing just to go, I will do it, and they don't sell the property. And in today's market, it's why we have so many more listings expiring, right? And so that pricing presentation is one of the most important things that you need to master. And then obviously we're going to isolate objections in order, again, to help people move forward and get them to a yes. We need to answer all of their questions because, we call them objections in the real estate business. We go like, hey, we need to get objections. Really, they're just questions. They're unanswered questions. And I'm in hopes that as you do your pre-listing questionnaire, you're kind of going to go into some of the worries that they have, so you don't have a ton of objections. But then isolating objections, if you don't know what isolating objections means, let's just say it's about commission. Hey, listen, you're concerned about the commission that I'm charging. Let me explain why and how commissions work. If we were to come to an agreement, is that the only concern you have? It's isolating it. It's basically, if we solve this problem, are you ready to move forward? Right? Because they might have multiple objections. And when they have multiple objections, you want to prioritize those objections in line to get them to a yes, right? So for example, they might have an objection that you're not marketing the house enough. And they might have an objection that you're charging too much on commission. Well, you're not going to answer the commission question really until you answer the marketing question, because one of the reasons you charge so much is the cost of marketing. And so, again, you get, once you isolate them and move forward, it gets them closer to yes. And then you close for the contract, right? Closing for the contract is not rocket science. Matter of fact, I used to go out on listing appointments with my agents, and I had 2 agents that were killing it, setting listing appointments, going on listing appointments, coming back to the office with no listings. And it kept going and going. I'm like, what are you guys doing wrong? And I went out and I went with them on the listing presentations, and they killed it. Like, they did all of this stuff. Here's where they messed up. And it sounds silly, but you got to think, how many times do I kind of do that? Right? We got to the very end and they would go, all right, well, thanks for having us out. We excited. Listen, here's my business card. If you have any questions, feel free to call, or when you're ready, feel free to call. Right? Close for the contract is as simple as this. Hey, Mr. Seller, I hope I've answered all the questions. I hope you see the value that we bring and how quickly and easily we can get your home sold for you. Are you ready to get started? Simple as that. Right? Don't overthink the close. Right? It's just making sure you ask the right questions. Right? Are you ready to get started? Is as simple and as good as a close as possible. Because if they say no, then it brings you back to 6. Well, what's holding you back from getting started right now? Then we answer that objection. Right? Now are you ready to get started? I know it sounds silly, but you're going to do it a little bit differently than that. But that's how we do it. Again, it brings you around so that nothing holds people back from moving forward, if that makes sense. All right. Guys, if you do have any questions, I'm going to try and answer some at the end. You might. All right, just want to double check. I'm going to pull it up. If you do have any other questions, I'm going to wait till the end. I think, Dan, if you're on there still, you can just kind of read through. And if there's any questions, then I can help handle them towards the end. All right. So, guys, let's jump into the pre-questionnaire.
And Jarrod, I was just going to add that I opened up the Q&A section. So if somebody has a question versus putting it in chat and it potentially getting lost, add it to the Q&A so we can circle back to it.
Perfect. See, It's not hard to tell I'm a real estate agent. I didn't get all the details before we started this, so which I should have. No, okay, good. Q&A, and we'll come back to it if you do have any questions. So guys, take a snapshot of this because I'm not going to go through all of this just for the sake of time. But this is an example of pre-questionnaire. You want to understand that your job in this is to understand the motivation of why they're selling, right? You want to be able to tailor your presentation to them all the way through so that it's really about them, right? And so you want to get to a place, with these questions that you know enough, but you're not answering. So, for example, when they say, "What is the time frame for you selling your home?" If they say, "Well, we'd like it sold in 30 days," you're in this questionnaire. You're not going, "Oh, well, the average days on market is blah blah blah." You're not doing that. This is a questionnaire that you just simply take. Right? Think of it as when you go to the doctor and the doctor sits there and asks, or a nurse sits there and asks the questions and they fill it out. They're just taking answers down. Or the last one where it says, what is your expected, or not the last one, but the one in there where it says, what is your expected price range? You're not there to argue, but like, let's be honest. If someone says, I'd like to get 700 for my house, and you start doing a CMA and you recognize, oh man, that house is worth, 550 at the most. You already know what your objection is going to be, right? And so you're tailoring your conversation around that. Even using lines like, "Hey, listen, one of the biggest mistakes that sellers make is they overprice their home. And when they overprice their home sits on the market, and it actually hurts the selling of their home. And ultimately, at the end of the day, they end up having to take less." Like if you know someone's going to overprice in the end, that is a really good conversation. Or they say 700 and you do your research and you can probably get 720, right? That is exciting, right? Because then you can go in and know, man, I am going to be able to sell this if I show them enough value that I can get it done, because we're not going to have an objection over price, right? Because let's be honest, if there's a challenge over price, there could be a challenge over commission. Right? And so we want to make sure that we're preparing for all of that upfront in advance. Last one is, what is your preferred method of communication? Guys, communicate with people how they want to be communicated with, not how you like to communicate. I am a texter, not because I don't like talking on the phone. I love talking on the phone, but it's because texts can handle situations so much quicker. And when you're busy, like I'm assuming most of you guys are, texts can sometimes move a lot quicker than a phone call, right? And so making sure that you're communicating with people, because if you're communicating everything in email and they said our preferred communication is text message and you're sending an email to them, you better also send them a text message and go, "Hey, I just sent you over an email of this," right? It's same with, when you're working with buyers. A lot of agents just email, "Oh, I emailed you over a bunch of listings," and the person goes, "Oh, I didn't see them," because their main form of communication isn't email. So they're not looking for that stuff. So take a screenshot of that. That way you have it. And again, put together what I would be doing. We used to have a pre-questionnaire where we literally filled it out. We took the information and we literally filled it out so that when we went back and prepared, we had all the information on a sheet of paper. Just create your pre-questionnaire so that you have the information in front of you. Here's the next thing. And then we talked a little bit about the building rapport and the built beginning. And so we talked about the Ford model. And so what I want you to kind of understand is, we need to get to know people by asking questions. So your pre-questionnaire is a really good start of asking people's questions, right? It's a really good start in the building the rapport, because that's all that is. But when you first get there, you want to dive a little bit deeper. Now, this is your opportunity to start diving a little bit deeper. If you could get to know people a little bit more, figure out their goals or what their motivation is, then figure out their challenges or their roadblocks to get there, offer suggestions to solve that problem, and then create a plan to help them win, right? And so that is a framework, 5-step framework to build rapport, because you start with getting to know them and you end with solving their problem with a plan. Same with buyers. It's the same concept with buyers. And so when you can get, like, have you ever been on an appointment and someone says, oh yeah, that sounds great. Oh yeah, that's good. That is a sign that what you're giving them is a plan that they can buy into, right? And so your job is to create that plan, because when you get to that, they feel heard. When you can say, it sounds like your struggle is this, like, again, let me give you an example. You go into a listing and the seller says, yeah, listen, I just lost my job. I mean, that's a little bit of a dramatic one, but I just lost my job and I need to sell the home because I can't afford, to live in the home anymore, and I gotta move, right? So listen, if we were able to get your home on the market and get it sold in the next 30 days and find you a rental, would that work for you? Right? And they might go, well, yeah, because I need it done as soon as possible, right? It's understanding their challenges, right? Goal is getting them into an apartment, understanding their challenges, which is they lost their job, offering suggestions of how you're going to make that happen, sell it quickly, find an apartment for them, and then create a plan around getting it sold. It builds stronger rapport than asking them about their friends or family. Not that you don't want to do that, you can do that, but it's really about their emotions. It's about handling emotions. Most people in the world today are emotions, right? And so Ray asked, how do you handle leads that are non-responsive? Well, I know this is going to sound silly and you're going to roll your eyes at me, but if a lead is non-responsible, you put them into a long-term nurture and you just follow up with them. Don't take it personally. If they're not responding to you, either they don't want your services, but here, I don't want you to tell yourself all that all the time. What I want you to tell yourself is they just don't need you right now. So we get a seller lead in, and you're reaching out to the seller lead and the seller just doesn't respond to you. It might be nothing about you. It might be just the fact of, well, they're not ready to sell yet. And so you're just catching them at the wrong time. And so therefore you need to make sure that you have a long-term nurture to follow up with them. Like, I mean, Deanna will tell you, even for example, sold.com leads. I'm sure Deanna would love for every sold.com lead to come in and they'd be going, I'm ready to sell right now. I mean, you would want that. Deanna wants that too, but here's the truth. Not all of them will. Deanna, you came back on the screen.
Yeah, I was going to say yes. Like, not all of them will. Most of them won't in the beginning stages, right? And yep. I think it goes back to how you started the conversation, which was, how many times are you reaching out? You know, are you doing those 5, 6, 10, 12 attempts on people? But I think a lot of people get so discouraged because they reached out, they didn't respond. And so our default answer is they're not interested.
Yeah, they're not interested.
Waste my time.
And most of the time they're just not ready. Yep. Simple as that, right? So put them in, make sure, Ray, you have a long-term nurture, that you're nurturing those leads long-term and doing it over time, right? So, and again, we can talk about this at another time. Like, we do a 10 days of pain where we're following up with them 10 days in a row. If they become non-responsive, we put them into a long-term nurture, which connects with them once a month, and they trigger us so often to pick up the phone and call them. So, all right, moving on. Listing presentation. Again, not going to go over this in detail. I want you to take a picture of it, because most of you are experienced enough that you do most of this, right? Brief intro, get to know the homeowner, motivation, which is kind of the rapport building you're going to do in the beginning anyway. Share what you can do to match their needs, right? Part of the thing in the very beginning. Then you introduce the power of your team. Now, I say that, and so some of you are like, well, I'm a single agent, I'm not on a team. And I say, listen, you are a team no matter where you are, because you have to have your license with a brokerage. Someone helps you, with things somewhere. And so if you want to get out and show the seller that it's not just you on this island, share the power of your team. Hey man, I work at this brokerage, and this brokerage has this person. Anytime you need, use the team, whether you're on a team that has lots of stuff or whether you're an individual agent in a brokerage. Both of those opportunities have lots of things that help you service sellers, right? Share local market data. I mean, I'll give you, examples of days on market is really important, so that we set expectations. List a sell ratio once they price right. I'm going to go into some stuff about what is the danger of overpricing, show hey, this person listed here, it's been on the market, and then they expire, all of that. Explain the process that they're going to go through. We're going to list the home. This is what the setup looks like. This is what marketing it looks like. This is what to expect for showings, all of that. show then how you're going to get the home in front of buyers. Because that's what a seller wants, right? A seller doesn't want just their house up and marketed. They want you to get it in front of prospective buyers. And so make sure that you're really clear in setting a plan of how you're going to get up in front of buyers. What does that mean? What do you do to get it up in front of buyers? I think a lot of people make the mistake where they just go, hey, we build this pretty flyer and we put it here and we put it there. But what matters to the seller is the buyer. So you might say the same thing, but it's, how do you get in front of buyers? So, hey, listen, what we do is we post it on here. The reason we post it on here is because we promote it and we get it out in front of this group of buyers. We do a flyer, and this is what we do with the flyer is we give it out in open houses, because when we have open houses, buyers walk through. And so that's what we do it for. Social proof, because if you helped others, they feel confident that you can help them, right? So testimonials, testimonial videos, anything you have, you can share that. That's one of the reasons we bring the book out the night before, is we have testimonials in there, because we don't want to brag on ourselves. We want to help them, and we want them to read kind of about us. 9, same in the other thing, which is handling objections or questions, right? And then proceed to the pricing presentation. Take a picture of that if you haven't. And then I'm going to go to the pricing presentation, because the pricing presentation in our world today is one of the most important things, right? And so I skipped one, did I? Sorry, hold on. Pricing presentation. Am I right? Yes, pricing presentation. Share the 3 options in pricing their home. In today's market, and I would just say, Mr. Seller, listen, there's 3 ways. There's 3 strategies that we can do to price your home. Number 1 is, yeah, we can overprice your home. The challenge with overpricing your home is it sits on the market for a lot longer and it kind of gets stagnant. And, we can overprice it and work through a price, a price improvement, whatever you want to call it, plan to get you there. But my concern about that is, it sits on the market longer and ultimately gets stale, and you may end up taking less money. So that is an option. The reason we say that, guys, is because 95% of sellers overprice. And so we want them to know that that's an option. It's just not a good one. And so it gives us a way to share that without them going, hey, you're wrong, right? And then the second one is, listen, Mr. Seller, we can list right at market. Now, the cool thing about listing it right at market is that it's going to definitely be shorter. We will see some offers come in, but they may be a little bit lower than what you expect. It may sit on the market a little bit longer, so you have to be a little bit more patient, but ultimately it will sell. Mr. Seller, the third way is that we can underprice it. Now, I know that a lot of sellers think by underpricing they're leaving money on the table, but the truth is, Mr. Seller, when we underprice stuff, what we do is we create this excitement. Can you imagine if you were a buyer and you were out looking at homes and there were 2 homes you looked at and one was $50,000 more than the other? Do you think that you would be more excited about putting the offer in on the first one and doing it quickly so that you don't lose out on the opportunity? Yeah, and so a lot of buyers are like that. And so often, even in today's market, we can see multiple offers, and ultimately that home can often be bid up past what your home value is. And so those are our 3 options that we can do, right? Again, you want to explain that to them, because when we explain it to them up front, it gives us a reason to revisit it in the back, especially when they go, well, I definitely understand I should list it at $550, but I'd like to list it at $599. Hey, definitely. Like I said in the very beginning, we had 3 options. One of the options were overpricing your home. I just want to make sure that you understand the outcome of us listing it at $599 versus us listing it at $550, because $550 is where the market should be, right? So again, those are the ways. Share local sales data and patent. Now, here's the 3 I'll tell you why I do it. I do solds, actives, expireds. A lot of people don't use expireds, and a lot of people use pendings. Nothing wrong. You can use pendings if you want. Pendings are great. You could use pendings. I just don't know enough information about pendings, right? What I can tell is, hey, the pendings is what's going on right now, and I know it's sold. And so I don't use a lot of pendings. I'm not saying if you do, it's wrong. The reason I use expireds, especially in markets like this, is your goal in this presentation is to give them a starting point and a finishing point, which means we could list from $540 to $599. And if we list at $599, I want to show you that we've had 4 listings that have expired at $599. And so, we can definitely do that. But what the data shows me is that if you list at $599, your home will stay on the market just like these homes did and ultimately expire. Versus the other side, which is, hey, listen, these are the solds. Based on the 3 solds, if you were just looking, Mr. Seller, at these 3 solds, I know you want $599. Where do you think your home would have sold had we listed it 30, 60, 90 days? Well, based on the solds, it looks like it probably would have sold at $545. Yeah, probably around 5. Now we have a baseline where we have, hey, $545, it would have sold 30, 60, 90 days. And here's your competition, which is now the actives. Mr. Seller, here's your competition. And you got to think from a buyer's perspective. If you're buying a home right now and you go and you see 3 homes and they're very similar, you like them all, but one is priced better than the other. Or maybe one is substantially overpriced in comparison to the other. Which one do you think will sell first? Yeah, great. So based on these 3 homes, where do you think we'd have to price your home in order for it to sell next? And then they're going to give you some sort of middle number. And then you're going to get into expireds, right? And the expireds are, hey, listen, this is my biggest concern is right now in our market, one of the biggest problems with sellers and selling their homes is their homes are overpriced and they expire. And I wanted to let you know what we're seeing with homes in your price point that are very similar to yours that are expiring. So we don't become an expired, because your goal is to sell your home, right, Mr. Seller? Yeah, and you don't want it to expire, right? Cool. So we've got one listed here at this price, this price. Now, what do we not want to go over? Well, we don't want to go over $599. Yeah, we don't want to go over $599 for sure. Now, listen, Mr. Seller, if you're serious about getting your home sold based on the 3 options that I provided you, where do you think we should list your home? They may not do the $599. They may go, well, I really thought we'd get $599. I really hope. And Mr. Seller, listen, here's the truth. As your agent, I'd love to list it at $599. However, my number one goal is not to list it. It's to ultimately get it sold for you. And that's your goal too, right? Yeah, cool. And then you get them to self-discover that price, right? Because if you give them a price, and so many agents give them a price, and an opinion of value is what we used to call it at some point. They give you an opinion, and then the seller thinks, well, my opinion is this. I don't want you giving your opinion. I want you giving data that allows the seller to self-discover where he should be. And then if he overprices, which I'm not saying don't take overpriced listings, I'm just saying if he overprices, he knows he is overpricing based on the data, not just based on you telling him, not just based on you saying, hey, you're overpriced. It's based on things that he can see, if that makes sense. All right, take a picture of that. The last thing is this, is the closing, right? Get in the right state, handle and isolate any objections, process to get started. So, Mr. Seller, this is what we got to do to get started. Listing agreement, no different than, again, the buyer rep. We just had a full year of getting used to the buyer rep, but it's the same language, right? Which is, hey, Mr. Buyer, this is how we get started in finding you a home. Seller is the same way. Reiterate your value based on their needs. Listen, Mr. Seller, you said that you lost your job and your goal is to get this house sold ASAP. I think that with what, if as long as we price it strongly, as long as we do the marketing we're doing, we can ultimately get you the most amount of money. In fact, I would suggest you choose option 3 when it comes to pricing, because that way it sells quickly and ultimately you can actually get more money, right? Create a sense of urgency. Like right now it's spring market urgency, but going, Mr. Seller, I'm not sure you want to wait too long. I'd love to get your home on the market because it sounds like you have a plan that you want to move on to. I want to move you on to a plan, and then come to an agreement. Right? Closing is a state of mind. And I'm going to end with this. Our job is to always exceed customer expectations. If we don't deliver level 10 customer service, then we can't expect referrals, because I want you to get referrals out of every listing. Maybe Deanna doesn't want me to say this, but here's the truth. You get a lead from sold.com, you sell their house, and that you sell 7 houses that they do in the future, right? Like that's the reality. If you deliver level 10 customer service, we pay for that lead once and then we sell them a bunch of houses down the road. I want you to over communicate. Don't think you can't over communicate, right? Don't go, oh, I don't want to communicate too much with them. None of you, I promise you, none of you over communicate. Matter of fact, for me with listings, I would make sure that I at least talk to every single listing once a week. That way they could never say to me that I listed their property, I put a sign up, and they never heard from me. Right? I carried 60 listings on Sunday afternoon. That's when I did it because it was so time consuming, but it was important mostly for referrals. It's probably why I had 60 listings, right? Set expectations, right? So in the beginning, people want process and expectations. So set expectations, deliver the results, and ultimately do what you say you're going to do. As long as you do all of that, then ultimately you're going to end up with so many more listings. And listen, bottom line comes down to it is if you aren't seeking out opportunities for listings, if you aren't going out and doing, you have 4 sources. And I'm going to let Deanna is going to take over here for a second, because sold.com is probably one of the best opportunities for you to get seller leads that come in that are more check equity than sweat equity. So Deanna.
No, this is great. I mean, there's so much information here, because I think you said something at the beginning of you just have to be prepared. And I think that sometimes is the biggest misstep that people take when they go into their meetings, is that they're just kind of winging it. And so I think there's so much that we can do to better prepare for the meetings that we're having, so that you go in so much better equipped, but also like practicing scripting. I did a webinar recently of talking about like our sales team internally, right? We do practices with our scripting. We go through objection handling. And I don't think that as real estate agents, we are thinking about that kind of stuff. Like how we already know in today's market, people are going to be talking about the high interest rates, right? What if my house doesn't sell? Like, you know, the questions that these consumers are going to ask when you go and meet them. Know what your answers are going to be, because you want to be confident in how you respond to those too, right? Because somebody had commented too in the chat, it's so much psychology into this. And as soon as you waver in your response, if you were to say like, well, interest rates are high, so I'm nervous about selling because I have to buy another house at this 7% interest rate or 6.5% interest rate. And you're like, yeah, I mean, interest rates are high. You've immediately lost them. Like It's already done. It doesn't matter what you say to them at that point. So there's so much confidence in practicing what you say. You gave a lot of scripts. And so again, I'll remind everybody that this is a recorded call, and we will, Jarrod, correct me if I'm wrong, we'll share the slides as well.
Yep.
So that they can have these and start to really build that right approach, so that everybody is well equipped in reaching out to their leads and knowing what to do when they're talking to people.
Absolutely.
And so like you said, I have a couple of slides of what sold.com does. So everybody in our network is invited to this call. And so some people have been in our network for a couple of weeks. Some people have been in our network for a couple of years. We've been around since 2018. So we've definitely been around for a while, but it's always good to kind of have a refresher. And Jarrod, feel free to chime in whenever you find applicable, or if you see applicable. But there's a lot of different ways to get in front of people. But at the end of the day, what Tom always says, what every coach always says, is just more conversations, get in front of more people. And whether it's the sweat equity approach of knocking on people's doors, leaving flyers, whatever that case is, or I should say, and adding in your marketing budget and having that in place to ensure that you are equipped to get in front of people, you, in most cases, have to have all of these different opportunities. I think a lot of times, especially newer agents, they talk to an agent who's maybe been in the business for a long time, and maybe they're taking a step back and they hear sphere of influence. And then that's the auto response, like, oh, I only work my sphere of influence. Unless you are literally not looking to grow your business and you've really reached the tail end of your business and you're just like, I don't want to do anything extra, but I'll take all my referral clients that come in. You should not be building your foundation solely on your sphere of influence. That should be the sprinkles on the cupcake.
Well, and because your conversion of sphere of influence is only maximized by the number of contacts you do with them. And when you start going above, like I take on a lot of clients and they go, I've got 700 people in my sphere of influence. And I say to them, unfortunately, that's way too big, because it is impossible for you to deliver the high content, high contact, high value to 700 people. You don't have enough time in your day to do it. And so the perfect sphere of influence is 300 to 400 that you deliver that high level to, and therefore your business caps out. If that's all your business will cap out at that. And so it's why it's important to leverage other opportunities.
Yeah, 100%, because it is, I think about myself as a consumer, and we all are consumers, right? We want that touch. If I have somebody who's just messaged me one time or sent me something months ago or even weeks ago, because we want that instant gratification, we want that ongoing communication. I kind of think they forgot about me and I've moved on to somebody else who's giving me the attention in that moment, right?
Yep.
It's kind of like dating, it's kind of like marriage. You can't just continue to exist and not bring flowers and not have things. You have to kind of show those different ways of always showing that you still care, that you still love, that you're still there, right? It just can't be, well, we're married, so of course I'm still here.
Or you'll start dating all over again, just so you know.
Exactly.
If you don't do it, you'll find yourself in the cycle of always trying to have the date. Right?
Exactly, 100%. And one thing we're really transparent about with sold.com leads specifically is we're a top of funnel lead source. So as much as I would love to say that every single person that you get introduced to through sold.com is going to be ready to raise their hand and shouting from the rooftops that they're looking to sell their home, I would be lying, and that's not the way it works. You are going to get lucky, like with every lead source, right? We have some people who get their first lead and it turns into a listing, and I love it. Our customer service team immediately calls them and resets expectations, because otherwise what happens is months, years down the road, their interpretation is they got one good lead and the other ones were bad. When in reality, they got lucky once and everything else just needed the traditional nurturing process. It's create that conversation up front. Yes, build your nurturing campaigns. Yes, have a CRM, but don't just have your CRM be your set it and forget it approach. You have to stay in front of them. You have to build some type of value of what you do, what you can offer to them, understanding that with honestly most seller lead companies, these are the realistic timelines of from the time that you speak to them, from the time that you're actually going to hear them do something. And if they're not responding to you, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not interested in doing something. The unfortunate piece is you can't tell the difference. You can't tell the difference if this person isn't responding because they really don't want to do something or because they're just not ready. So you just have to keep following up with everybody, right? You just have to keep your same cadence, treat everybody as equal until truly somebody tells you something different. I've been in sales a very long time, and I was always the approach of I'm going to keep following up until they tell me to kick rocks, right? Like that is when I'm going to stop my follow-up, and I'm going to have different types of approaches to different types of leads. I know a lot of coaches have talked about like grading your leads so that you can take a different approach based off of where that person sits in your funnel. But when that beginning stages, you need to treat everybody the same. So sold.com, where we put you ahead of the game compared to other companies is we do have a concierge team that sets up appointments for the consumer to meet with an agent. And so that tends to be the biggest part, the hardest part for most agents is to get their foot in the door, right? They can get all the leads that they want, but how are they getting their foot in the door? Sold.com is going to help you guys get in front of that consumer and start that conversation, get in their home, have a face-to-face interaction, give them a home valuation, start talking about what it is that you offer, start showcasing that stellar customer service and build that rapport, make a friend for that long-term follow-up to start, right? Not just a quick phone conversation because it's not memorable. Get in front of these people. So sold.com is actually setting up those in-house appointments for you. And so for those of you guys who are on this call, some of you guys may already be receiving our leads and getting those appointments. But if you have not been receiving our leads and getting appointments, it's likely because of your rank in our system. So like any company, even within your own brokerages and teams, your broker, your team lead traditionally hands out leads in the order in which they think the agent has the highest probability to convert them. And we're the same, right? We want to make sure that if I'm going to give this lead to somebody, that agent has the highest probability to convert it based off of their MLS statistics saying that they are a top performing agent, or we have the ability for agents to buy their ranking up to the top, which says they have a vested interest. They have skin in the game, right? They are investing money into themselves, into the advertising. And so they are probably going to work these leads harder than somebody who maybe hasn't had a sale yet or doesn't have any skin in the game. So what does that cost look like and what do you get when you do that? One thing is you get the first opportunity to claim appointments. So if you are the zip code sponsor and we get an appointment in your area, you are going to basically have the first right of refusal. So it's going to immediately put you in a position to get every appointment opportunity first and have 30 minutes to claim that appointment. Second is it's also going to unlock non-appointment leads. So just because we didn't get them on the phone doesn't mean that they're not interested. So we want to give you guys the opportunity alongside of our concierge to try to get those consumers on the phone. And when sold.com sends you a non-appointment lead and you are the paid sponsor in that area, we completely waive the referral fee altogether, because sold.com just gave you the contact information. We didn't set the appointment. You'll pay zero referral fee on those non-appointment leads. So this is a really great way. We're going into the spring selling season, right? So this is a really great way to really jumpstart that and make sure that you're getting people in front of you and start having those conversations today by us setting up appointments for you. And then you just generally building a bigger sphere, because again, hopefully every single person that you speak to then has a tree branch to other people that they can send you and refer you to. So those are the options of sponsoring zip codes. A couple of things I'm going to pop up are promo pricing. So yes, there are lots of different ways to advertise in this industry, and there are a lot of expensive ways to advertise in this industry. The great thing about sponsoring zip codes with sold.com is that it's far less expensive than, in my opinion, every other lead platform out there, especially for seller leads. Our zip codes for our promo for Tom Ferry are $60 zip codes. So that is extremely inexpensive. I came from the world of Zillow, Boomtown, and you know that you're spending a couple $1,000s a month for a portion of one zip code with some of those companies. And you are getting buyer leads. This is exclusively seller leads, but 82% of sellers are also buying statistically. So there's still an opportunity. So if this is something you want to take advantage of, you guys can click on the pop-up that I have in there. I'm going to link it also in the chat for those of you guys who can't click on that if it's not working. And then you can scan the QR code if you're on this. Before I go off of this, I'm going to do my shameless plug because I recently ran into Tom at a conference. And I had him chat with me about what sold.com is doing right now. So this is my shameless infomercial plug. So that was my cringeworthy moment of watching yourself back, right? This is the great part about being on a webinar. You can't hear yourself speak. So I suffered through it. So yes, we are doing really great things. We love being part of the Tom Ferry Network. We love partnering with you guys, Tom, Jarrod, everybody on your coaching staff, because we just have been able to really invest in agents finding success. We hear really good feedback from people. And especially because we can continuously provide more information like this to help people actually be successful. Because it's tough, right? There's a lot of competition. The economy's changing. The industry's changing. And so everybody has to stay relevant. And also sometimes, and realistically, none of what we reviewed today is rocket science, or probably even the first time that you've heard it. Most of these things are reminders, and we all need that as part of our businesses, just to kind of reinvigorate ourselves and know what to do to be successful. Because at the end of the day, this is not a simple job, and you have to do a lot of work in order to be successful in this role. And so if you can take all the tips that Jarrod gave you, invest in your success with something like sold.com and other platforms as well, to make sure that you have enough opportunities and enough at-bats, you will be successful. And those are the stories that I know Jarrod and myself want to continue hearing, especially when you take the tips and tools and services that, you know, we provide you. Jarrod, before I let everybody go, anything else to add?
You know, again, you focus, you get what you focus on. And so guys, if you aren't intentional about taking listings, you are making a huge mistake. If you aren't intentional about building out your lead sources and get super clear on where your leads are coming from, and looking at multiple sources and multiple opportunities, you know, alongside with sweat equity, check equity like sold.com, then you are missing the opportunity to have a killer year. So end of it. Thanks, Deanna, for having me on. Go take as many listings as you can get.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jarrod. Look forward to seeing you guys all again. Have a good one.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye.